Welcome back to the Selling with Love podcast. This is your host, Jason Marc Campbell, and what I want to do today is not necessarily teach you anything new when it comes to going out there and selling with love, but rather I want to share a very simple, fun acronym to teach you some of the things you should not do when you go out and sell. And so there's various mistakes that we can make. And, most of them, if you're talking from a technical point of view, I have so many of my students that are wondering like, oh my God, is this email, is there a little word I should change in this email to really make a drastic change to how it's going to convert? Or should I say this script when I close to make sure that it's the perfect way? And I find we often put too much emphasis on some of the little details. The example I often say when it comes to sales process, and let's say more specifically closing, it's almost like asking somebody or give somebody coming to you and asking for advice on, okay, I'm about to propose for marriage. And what I need to know is what gives me a better conversion rate? Is it putting the left knee down or the right knee down? How high should I open the box? And should I open the box before I say, will you marry me? Or should I say, will you marry me? And then open the box? Yeah, sure. We could probably find some sort of measurements and maybe some micro changes that could increase the acceptance rate of a wedding proposal. But you'd probably be quick to realize that if your goal is to get somebody to say yes to a marriage proposal, then perhaps we have to look more on how somebody shows up consistently leading up to the point of asking for the close. I mean, a wedding is a contract, right? Getting married is a contractual obligation. It definitely is a sale. And so when we look in business, we often start thinking like, oh my God, I feel so nervous. There's little things that I need to tweak. Is it perfect? And rather, we want to pay attention on how are we showing up consistently on how we interact with a client. How do we interact with them before them being a client? And so this acronym I want to share with you is a very powerful one, and I speak about it more in my book, Selling with Love. So if you haven't gotten a copy yet, you should definitely be getting a copy. We're up to 50 reviews on Amazon, mostly all 5 stars. And so apparently it's a book that you should be picking up if you're still struggling with sales and definitely want to show up with more love. But let me give you a sneak peek and share this concept. This acronym is actually about how some people will end up sabotaging their sales. Sabotage. It's a beautiful word. And of course, if we shorten it to just SABO, is going to be the acronym we're going to play with today. So this will be a very interesting way for you to remember the 4 letters for SABO that you can remember and realize that whenever you show up in a sales interaction, you're trying to maybe do some prospecting or nurture your leads or close a sale, remember the SABO and make sure that these are behaviors that we're avoiding in the process. All right. Enough teasing, let's get into it. So SABO, it starts with S, and S stands for scared. If we are going into the sales process, I mean, this is a huge concept, and a base of most of what I teach when it comes to selling with love is being the opposite of love is actually fearfulness, or being scared. You don't want to show up in a sales interaction being scared. And, this comes from so much of our subconscious thoughts of what does it mean to present a product to somebody else? What does it mean to be selling to others? And I was consulting somebody yesterday, actually, where the way that they position themselves or frame the conversation speaking to somebody else that could buy their products is, oh, I feel like I don't want to say the wrong things, and I don't want to, come across as, not too experienced enough. And what I reminded them is that we don't need to put them on a pedestal. We don't need to be fearful when we are trying to actually solve problems in their life. There's nothing to be afraid of. If all you're trying to do is help people, you're trying to find out what kind of problems they do have and to see if there's a fit between what you do and the potential of them getting rid of that problem in their life. And so we shouldn't have to be afraid about doing that. But this is where all the conditioning, the beliefs we have around sales, maybe some events in sales and perceptions of sales that we need to challenge. And for any of you who have been in any one of my webinars or trainings that I do, you know that this is a big thing that we solve are what are the biggest fears we have around sales. And it's very normal to have fears. I mean, we can all show up scared for different reasons, but we want to address those because we know what it looks like when we show up without fear. We get to show up with love. And it comes from a lot of getting out of our own head, our fear of rejection, our fear that our product's not good enough, a fear that we don't have enough experience, and start realizing that none of that is as important as trying to get into the mind of the person we're selling to, which is, what is their problem? How much is their problem costing them? What could be things that they could do with you that would make this problem go away? And how better their life would look like without that problem. When you're more inside the mind of your prospect and understanding how their situation is and how you can help them, the better you are to show up with love as opposed to fear, which is very much focused on your own mind. So the first letter in SABO is S, which is when you show up in sales, don't be scared. Face your fears, show up with love. Now the A, the second letter for SABO is the letter A. And this one, for most of the listeners on the podcast, I don't think this is going to be an issue because I know you're all ethical businesses that are impact-driven, mission-aligned, values-aligned. And so this one probably might not come to you. And if it is, maybe it's not something you're conscious about, but it's always amazing to do a little gut check on this one. The A stands for arrogant. You know the type. You've seen the arrogant salesperson. Matter of fact is the fact that we've witnessed so many arrogant salespeople, maybe because of their lack of experience, their lack of training, their insecurities, or maybe it's indirectly through media. Some of the movies we've seen, these cocky, arrogant salespeople going out there and just closing sales and sounding like they know how to position the ways they speak in such beautiful, automatic ways. And you're like, oh my God, I don't want to be like one of these salespeople. It's actually one of the big reasons that sales gets such a bad name, because we think we're supposed to be these arrogant people telling the prospect that they need to buy or they're stupid. And that is not the way to sell with love. And that's the way that people do not want to buy. Nobody wants to be guilted or made to feel stupid in the face of a salesperson that's trying to present a product. You don't want to be arrogant. You want to be caring. You want to understand them. And as one of the 5 loves of selling, which is understand your client, when you know what they have as a problem can be solved with the solution you bring, there's no need to be arrogant with the client. Instead, you need to learn what is the language that is necessary for you to have empathy. What I mean by that is once you start realizing that you need to speak to them the way they want to be spoken to, and you need to explain how you can solve their problem in a way that they'll understand, that's how you start loving the sales process. There's nothing arrogant about it, and you don't need to show up like you know better. You need to empathize, understand, and present the solution in a way that you know that what you're offering is so much more than what you ask in return. We don't need any arrogant salespeople. We need the ones that are caring. And that's why you're listening to this podcast. And that's why I put out this book. And that's why we're going to keep working towards bringing more conscious sales leaders in the world, changing that culture so that we can really make a difference, make an impact, and stay aligned with our integrity as well. So we don't want to show up scared. We don't want to be arrogant. And number 3 is number 3 is the letter B, SABO, S-A-B. B is a bit of a byproduct of fear, but let's be very specific on this letter so that we know we should never show up this way. B stands for begging. We never go into a sales scenario to beg for a sale. Nothing will ruin your chance of ever doing future business than begging for the sales and coming from this place of lack and really putting yourself as small compared to the person that you're selling to. No one likes a needy person, whether that's in business or if we even make comparisons to the dating world. No one likes a needy person because now it feels like guilt is transferred to us, all these negative emotions. And the worst thing you can do is to beg people to buy from you. No, we're here to provide more value than what we ask in return. And so we need to make sure that we are positioning ourselves as professionals, equals, solving problems for people that have them and having a solution that truly will take that problem away from them. There is no begging in a fair transaction. There's only love, and there's only knowing that what you offer solves more problems for the cost than any other solution that they could bring in their life right now. Your solution is amazing. That's how you need to show up. There is no begging required. Rather, is you present it in the best way possible and make them understand that this is going to be the best decision in their best interest. There is no begging in a beautiful sales process. And that would be so awkward. Imagine someone comes to you and begs you to buy. You might just buy, especially if it's a small cost transaction. You will buy to say goodbye. And then you'll never open the door for this person again. So defend your brand. You're in this business for the long term. We never go in begging. We lead with value. Which brings us to the last letter. Now, I love this letter because the first time I presented this concept, I was going through this explanation very similarly to how we're doing it now. And I went through the S, scared. I went through the A, arrogant. I went through the B, begging. Don't do any of these three. And then I got to the O and I was like, oh my God, I forgot what the O stood for, which is hilarious because that's exactly what happens when you do something like what the O stands for, is you become forgotten. People don't take action. They don't get excited about the presentation you made. They don't get excited about your product. And so the O stands for ordinary. And that's right. If you want to show up unnoticed in the world, then just do ordinary actions. Don't do anything special, just the bare minimum of what is expected. And what I'm here to suggest to you, if you want to be great and you want to grow and you want abundance, the universe favors the bold. And so I would say show up extraordinary. That's how you can make sure that you have people that are left mesmerized by the product that you deliver, by the presentations you make, by the way you do a sales pitch and consult them. You want to make sure that it is extraordinary. And how do we do that? We continuously learn, we continuously practice, we continuously care, we show up with love, and we want to make sure we're providing the best experience for the best product with you. And so if you continuously show up as an extraordinary salesperson, an extraordinary service provider, there is nothing more attractive for clients, for the businesses to grow, because most people aren't willing to be extraordinary. And so I leave you with a dare. I dare you to do more than the minimum. Go and learn everything you can about sales. Know that it's a beautiful act of an energy exchange, and every time you make that transaction, you know you offer so much more than what you ask in return. That's what Selling with Love is all about, and that's why, remember, do not sabotage your sale. Remember the SABO. Don't be scared. Don't be arrogant. Don't be begging, and don't be ordinary. Be extraordinary. And before you know it, you'll have a thriving, growing business with happy clients that you love working with. And that's where we want to go. And these are a few cautionary tales of what you should avoid so you can continue to sell with love. Thanks again for watching and subscribing to this podcast. If you haven't left a review yet, then I will ask you if you've been having an extraordinary time. I will not beg you for a review, but I will ask gently to please leave a review, because as you do so, we get to share this message and we get to see a world with a lot more extraordinary salespeople, you amongst them, maybe some friends, maybe some peers, maybe some strangers, but every review helps, particularly on Apple and on Spotify. So if you have a moment, go and do that now. And until next time, keep selling with love.